Welcome to the Nightly Rant
with
your hosts, Mike
and Torya.
This is the show where we examine society from a sarcastic point of view.
If you like insane conversations, this is definitely the show for you.
Let's get into today's topic. YPN people, I don't know about you, but I love helping out a friend. That's why I want to shout out my friend Brian Little and his podcast, Your Favorite Blockhead. This is the only show that manages to weave together peanuts and MMA into one heck of an amazing podcast. You can find Your Favorite Blockhead wherever your favorite podcasts reside and at yourfavoriteblockhead.com. Do me a huge favor and listen to Brian's show. You'll be entertained and you'll help out a friend. Now, as I said, let's get into today's topic. So tonight you got to be the troublemaker.
I was not a troublemaker. I am a trouble solver.
Well, I guess that depends on which side of the spectrum on this issue you are.
I'm on the pro jackasses should pay people the money that they're owed side.
Okay, that makes sense. That's the side I'm on too.
Oh, well, look at this. We agree on something already.
I don't understand. Well, it just makes me laugh that, what happened was we've talked about the city council member who never paid her one campaign worker, at least one that we know of. And so
the only one willing to come forward.
The campaign worker, after much effort to get her payment, went ahead and filed a small claim suit against her. And what was hilarious was when she gave like a speech and said at the end that she'd been served. And the woman thought that meant the other woman thought she had served her. So instead, she's pointing, going, that's not right. That's not legal. You can't do that. And then you go sliding up there. And what did you say?
Yet again, you've been served.
It's funny.
And then what did she say? Thank you.
She said, thank you. It was funny. It was funny to watch. And then the city attorney having to make the comment that, this is a private matter and that the city council doesn't address it. So let's just move on with our agenda. It was kind of funny too.
Yeah. He's a giant baby. And when I find his email address, I'm going to send him an email telling him that he's wrong and that it can be served in a public place. And that maybe he should actually learn the law before becoming a city attorney.
It's a good thing that I'm the only one that has the email address and I'm not giving it to you.
I could find it on the internet. I'm 99% sure.
Okay, well, more power. I'll give you $1 if you do.
Sounds good. I now know his middle name, though. Like, that's how creepy I've been so far.
But that brings me to the file that we constantly open because there's so much depth to this issue and so many angles. Again? We're going to talk about people who, I don't know, let's talk about whiny people. But whiny people that you would never expect to be whiny.
You mean people who act like they're so tough and no bullshit, and that as soon as something gets even 1% hard, they're like, wah!
Well, exactly. And I'm still really shocked by the reaction of certain people because it makes me feel like they do jobs that are tough jobs, like not easy jobs.
But not jobs that require a lot of interaction with people.
They're apparently good at those jobs. But yet when it comes, so what happens is I think that they're this particular person is very comfortable in their own opinion.
Seems reasonable.
But they're not super comfortable in other people's opinions. And like I say all the time, what other people think about me is none of my business. And it really isn't my business. Because why would I ever let someone else define who I am?
You wouldn't, because that would be dumb.
Why would anybody do that? It's just, it makes no sense to let other people define you. You know who you are. Your closest family members know who you are. Your closest friends know who you are. Those are the people that matter. Nobody else in this world really matters.
But what about the people who don't know who they are?
They don't matter. But they don't matter.
No. Person A does not know who person A is. You know what I'm saying? People don't know who they are.
Well, sure, but it's still, you don't let someone else define you.
But I think they're the ones who are most likely to let someone else define them.
Okay, then bring that point up. That's a good point. But we're talking about why would you ever let someone else define you? And that would be one reason, because you're like not clear yourself on who you are. Maybe you're too young yet to know who you really are.
Yeah. I also think that there's a group of people who care way too much about what other people think, so therefore they let other people's opinions define who they are.
100%. Yes. There's people from all the way from one end of the spectrum to the other. People who never let people define who they are to people who always let people define who they are. The interesting trait about someone like that is that my brain does not compute some of the things that they say. Like someone who is afraid of someone else's opinion of them, for whatever reason, is very confused about what went on. Like to the point where we could go out, walk down the hallway, and we could pass a man in a green shirt, then a man in a blue shirt, and then a man in a red shirt.
It's too many men
all in a row. 3 men, green, red, and blue. And later, talk about it, and you could say, no, we passed 3 ladies in bikinis. There was no man in a red shirt, green shirt, blue shirt. None of that happened. Then we watched the video, and there's way closer to what I said than what you said.
It was actually 3 women in a red, blue, and green shirts.
Yeah, like way closer to what I said than what you said, but still not 100% correct. So the point is, you're going to see things from different perspectives, and that's why you can't let other people define you, because then you're giving into their perspective. And now, if you want to give into their perspective because you think their perspective is right, by all means do so. But don't just give into it for making things easier, because it doesn't make things easier. It actually makes things worse.
Right.
You tend to get overly emotional. You
crazy.
Get upset about the dumbest things that you shouldn't get upset about. Probably make physical threats that body can't cash those checks.
Definitely cannot keep.
I mean,
that's funny.
I don't see good coming from that.
Right.
And if you start to convince yourself that what you said is true, well, the evidence has already shown you that it's not true. We already saw that there weren't ladies in bikinis.
Right.
You're only partially right. They're ladies. The rest of it I was right about. They're wearing a green shirt, a red shirt, and a blue shirt. So that's what it depends upon. It depends upon whose perspective you're looking at things from.
Well, and if I cared about your opinion, which I do, but I'm the metaphorical your now, I would have just been like, oh, they were definitely 3 men in those colored shirts.
Yeah, but my point here is, like we say all the time, just because there's a difference of opinion there doesn't make us enemies.
Right, of course. And then if I didn't give a shit about your opinion at all, I would die on the freaking cross for those women in bikinis, Then I would argue with you even after the video was shown. And then I would make up facts like, oh, the women in bikinis came after the men with the shirts.
No, what you'd say is the women in bikinis came first with a green shirt, a red shirt, and a blue shirt on. And as they got closer to us, they took the shirts off. And they were in their bikinis that happened to be green, red, and blue bikinis.
Wow. Okay.
That
makes sense.
See how elaborate the story can get? But yet, those are differences. One person only saw 3 people who they thought were men in colored shirts, and they knew the specific colors. The other person saw 3 women, but they saw them in bikinis. And actually, the way I led it, that person is actually the most accurate, because at some point they did see women in bikinis.
Well, you think about it, the person that's willing to die on those people in bikinis, they would then attack you after and say you're an idiot and say you're controlling for trying to tell them, say you're the worst for making them watch the video that just proved that there was more to the story than they told you in the first place. They would go all crazy. Those are the whiny babies of the world.
Well, right. And part of the problem is that those kind of people convince themselves that they're 100% right. And in turn, when you point that out, those same people try to claim you think you're 100% right. And here's a question for you. We've been talking for 10-ish minutes. Have I once said that I was 100% right?
Well, okay, but I have a better question. Doesn't everybody think that they're right when they open their mouth?
You think you're mostly right. Sometimes I open my mouth when I'm not 100% certain, but if I'm 98.9% certain and my gut's telling me it's probably 100%, but really we can only confirm 98.9%, I'm going with it. Doesn't have to be perfect 100%.
And honestly, I think most people, when they open their mouth and make a statement, they're correct about that statement in their head. They open their mouth and they ask a question, they're probably not 100% sure about what they think.
Well, and I think you need to have an open mind, though, right?
Of course. But why is it so wrong for people to make statements with the assumption that they're correct? Why does everybody seem to think that's the worst thing in the universe?
Isn't that what you're doing when you attack somebody for doing that?
Exactly.
Because you're saying it's your opinion that they shouldn't act that way.
You're an asshole. Would I say that without thinking I'm like 100% correct? Of course not.
Right.
Unless I'm going to giggle afterwards. At that point, I'm joking.
Right. But you get it. And that's the unreasonable nature of that type of person.
Right.
And they kind of put you in a spot where you have to be blunt, because if you're not blunt, they blur the lines of what's actually said.
Let's be real. They blur the lines even if you're blunt.
Well, yeah, but it's easier to see the lines when you're looking for them,
I guess.
So I don't know. I think there's that kind of person that's really annoying.
Right.
All right. But what else is also annoying is people who don't finish what they start.
Giant quitters.
Like, that's just, I don't comprehend that. Like,
and hold on, we're not talking about the type of person who like buys an old car and is going to restore it, and then 6 years in they're like, I quit, and they sell the car. No. We're talking about people who get involved with things where other people are freaking counting on them, and then they're just like, fuck this, I'm out. And
then they make up the reason why.
Yeah. So sometimes these two types of people can be the same person.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the worst.
Unfortunately, it's true. Then that's the worst combination. But that's what's frustrating to me is, like, we've had this conversation before when we had Joy on about how I like to get into the other person's chair and hear things from their perspective. But sometimes it falls on deaf ears because I really can't understand the other perspective. And this is one of those times that I really can't understand the other perspective, because to me, one of the reasons why, I mean, we kind of went off in a weird direction, but one of the reasons why I mentioned the two scenarios thing is, what would have happened if one side, when they looked at the video, was 95% correct? That means the other side was only 5% correct. So does that mean one person's right and the other one's wrong? No, it just means one person had a better view of what happened and better recollection of what happened. That's it. Doesn't make anyone better than anybody.
Of course not.
But that's where those kind of people take it. They take it into a blame game. You know, you point out that you did something, but that it's okay because all of them have done that something. And then they go, oh, well, you know, I'm sorry that you had to do that something. I'm sorry that you had to do it. That was never said. Like, people put words in your mouth that you didn't put there. And that's not right. And that goes back to letting other people influence your opinion of yourself. You can't let them dictate who you are. You dictate who you are, period. And you know what?
Sometimes
Go ahead.
You are is just an asshole.
Well, I was just going to say, and if that's what it is, then that's what it is, and you deal with it accordingly.
Right.
But you don't change it into something it's not. That's silly. That's just lunacy.
Like, I concur.
You have to deal with reality. I think sometimes that's where bluntness comes in. And to be offended because someone consults with their
trusted advisors, I mean, they have to realize that if you're married, you have a spouse. If you're not married, but you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you have them to talk to. So why is it any different to have somebody who you trust just as much as those people? Right.
To ask questions of and get an opinion, especially when, once again, the reason for requesting the opinion was not to prove oneself right. It was to determine if oneself was wrong and needed to apologize.
Right.
You know, like, that's a very different thing than I'm going to prove myself right. I was trying to prove whether or not I was wrong. Am I wrong or not? Because if I'm not wrong, I'm not apologizing. But if I'm wrong, I'm apologizing.
I do that all the time with you. I'll send a message and be like, was this rude? Like, did I need to soften this a little bit? And I'll read you the message with the tone I intended it with. And sometimes you'll tell me, well, that was probably rude. And sometimes you'll be like, hey, that wasn't rude at all. That was just blunt enough. But it's no different than that. I just come to you. I ask my question. You determine whether or not I need to send a nice, soft, by the way, I didn't mean to be a bitch in my previous message. Or you tell me that was perfect.
Well,
that was a long story. My apologies.
Think organically here. What would happen if in society you got to say what you wanted to say about an issue, as long as you didn't outrageously lie, but you got to say your opinion based on fact of what you thought about an issue.
Correct.
And then you got to allow other people to have their reaction to that without you reacting back.
Well, everybody would be an adult.
You said what was on your mind, and they get to say what's on their mind. Now all the opinions are out there, and guess what? You know what you're going to find out? You're going to find out if there's 4 opinions, is opinion number 1 the strongest, 2, 3, or 4? You know how you're going to find that out? More people will share that opinion. The more you share the problem, the more people share their opinion of how to fix the problem. It doesn't matter what it is in life.
Well, then those 4 opinions will all group together, and they'll appoint somebody else to go, and they'll give their opinion again, which will change the groupings a little bit. And maybe now there's only 3 opinions because opinion 4 was crap.
That's exactly what happens. And it's how things like this are dealt with in a fair manner, because that's what equal representation is really about, if you ask me.
Right.
It's about everybody being, like we've talked about before, if you vote for president based on who you think can do the best for you, your family, and your business that will benefit you the most, then you vote for that person. Period. Yeah. That's who you vote for. And if everybody did that, the majority would be represented by the person that got elected.
That example we just used with 100 people and the 100 opinions, and then the 4 groups and then the 3 groups, that's how you end up with political parties. But the difference is you get so ingrained into the political party that you never bother to jump from one circle to the other when your opinion changes.
Well, right. You get into party ideology instead of what's right and what's wrong. That's why, well, there's not a lot wrong with group think in a certain way, but it has to actually be group think
instead of group follow.
Yeah. Yes. You have to use your brain and give consideration to what's being said to determine, do you agree with it or disagree with it?
So think instead of sheep.
Right. Use your brain. Don't just bat and follow. But that's an important concept for people to learn, because most people today, they want everything yesterday. And even I saw a post today about, your body is not social media. You cannot get a reaction after, 2 minutes. In other words, you want to lose weight.
I get
it isn't going to happen in 2 minutes like an Instagram post. But if you put up an Instagram post, 2 minutes later, people are reacting to it. So
right.
If it's a decent post anyway. But that's neither here nor there. The point is that people should be given the right to think what they want to think. And the other people should be allowed to react how they react. And you just let it be. If they're angry with you, then they're angry with you. Then you ask them what you can do to fix it. But if all they are is just like taken aback and they're just not kind of talking about it, well, that's their right to not talk about their opinion.
Like I said, sucks to suck.
I'm not going to push them. I mean, if it comes down to making a vote and I'm the one who gets to make the vote and you don't tell me your opinion, well, then your opinion never got considered. That's sad. Opinion should always get considered.
Right.
My opinion.
I agree.
That was not a pun.
Considering your opinion and agreeing with it.
Good, because you should consider my opinion. I'm not going to say whether you should agree with it or not, but you should always consider it.
Well, of course, the agreement
I always
is
consider
completely
your opinion.
freely willing.
I just don't consider Diego's opinion because his opinion quite often is just wrong.
He pooped out the side of his crate today, okay? His opinion is clearly wrong.
So...
Did you hear what I said?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course I heard what you said.
Just making sure.
You said it, so why wouldn't I hear it?
I don't know. Maybe a meteor struck right at that moment.
Hopefully Diego feels better soon because I can't take much more of that.
He's ocean peeing 100 times an hour.
He is.
Anyway.
So hopefully he'll feel better, and that's a good thing.
Feel better, Ego. Good night, everyone.
Hasta la bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Nightly Rant.
If you enjoyed the show, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Google Play.
If you didn't enjoy the show, please just ignore that previous request for a rating.
This has been a Yogi's Podcast Network production.